I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Honestly, I didn't. It all started out so innocent, just a simple shift in the way things were, a little change that at first didn't seem like it would make any difference at all. It's funny how you can look back and pinpoint the exact moment when everything started to unravel, but in the moment, it just felt like another ordinary day. I met Ethan during our sophomore year of college. We were both in the same chemistry class, and to be honest, I didn't even notice him at first. He was the quiet, studious type, always buried in his textbooks, and I was the one who spent more time socializing than studying. But somehow, we ended up working on a group project together. I remember the first time we actually spoke. He was sitting at the library, and I was running late. Typical me. I grabbed the seat next to him, hoping to get started, and I spilled my coffee all over his notes. He didn't even flinch, just wiped it off and smiled, like it was no big deal. I was embarrassed, but he made me feel at ease. From that point on, things just clicked. We started hanging out more, grabbing lunch after class, talking about everything from the dumbest memes to our childhood memories. It didn't take long before I realized how much I liked him. He was sweet, dependable, a little awkward, but in a way that made me feel safe. He wasn't like anyone I had dated before. He was patient, kind, and just a little bit nerdy, which I thought was adorable. We didn't rush into anything. It was slow, comfortable. It felt natural. I remember our first kiss, how I thought I might explode from the butterflies in my stomach, but it was also so easy. Like we had been doing it forever. That was Ethan. But here's the thing. I wasn't exactly the kind of girl who waited for Mr. Perfect. I had my fun before Ethan, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. College was full of distractions, and there was always someone who was easy to talk to, easy to hang out with. But with Ethan, it felt different. I fell for him in a way I didn't expect. The first time I met Jake was a few months into my relationship with Ethan. Jake was Ethan's best friend from childhood, and they had always been super close. He was different from Ethan in every way. Where Ethan was quiet and reserved, Jake was loud, outgoing, and had that natural charisma that made him the life of any room. He was charming, the kind of guy who could talk to anyone and make them feel like they were the most important person in the room. I wasn't expecting much when I met him. We were all hanging out one weekend at Ethan's apartment. He had invited me over, and of course Jake was there too. It was a low-key evening. Just the three of us, watching movies and drinking beer. I didn't think much of it at first. Ethan was happy, and I liked being around him. But Jake was different. At first, it wasn't anything major. He made me laugh with his jokes, and I liked that he was so easy to talk to. He was smart, but in a way that was more street, smart than book smart. He had this relaxed, confident vibe that was so different from Ethan's more anxious energy. I didn't think about it at the time, but I started to notice little things. The way Jake would look at me, the way his gaze lingered just a little too long when we were talking, and the way he would tease me, always pushing boundaries with his comments, but in a way that didn't feel creepy, more like playful. There was one night, a few weeks later, when Ethan had to leave for a work trip, and Jake and I ended up hanging out again. We had planned to watch a movie, but instead, we spent hours talking about life. It was just supposed to be a casual hangout, but I felt this strange pull towards him. There was something about the way he looked at me. Like he was seeing me in a way Ethan didn't. He noticed things about me that I didn't even realize I was showing. And for some reason, it felt good. He wasn't shy about complimenting me, either. Every time he did, it made me feel seen, in a way I hadn't felt in a while. I should have stopped it then. I should have put up a wall, reminded myself that I was in a relationship. But I didn't. The next few weeks were full of small moments like that. We'd talk after Ethan left, or when he was busy with work. I didn't want to admit it to myself at first, but I started looking forward to our time together. Jake had this way of making everything feel exciting and new. He was a risk, and in a way, I was drawn to that. I think that's what started to change things. I wanted to feel that rush again, that excitement that I hadn't felt in so long. It wasn't like I was actively trying to cheat on Ethan. But something about Jake, the way he made me feel, started to chip away at the connection I had with Ethan. I don't think I was consciously aware of it at first, but I was beginning to pull away from Ethan without even realizing it. One night, Jake and I had been texting all day, and I thought nothing of it. It was just friendly banter, or so I told myself. But when he asked if I wanted to hang out at his place after Ethan left for the weekend, I agreed. At this point, I was walking a fine line. I knew what I was doing, or at least I was starting to realize it. But I pushed those thoughts away. Because when I was with Jake, I felt alive. Like I wasn't just a wife or a girlfriend, but someone who was desirable and exciting again. That night at Jake's place, things escalated in a way I never planned for. I wasn't sure when it happened, but one thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were kissing. It was so unexpected, but it felt right. And once that line was crossed, everything else seemed to fall into place. I remember thinking, this is it. The moment where everything changes. But in that moment, I didn't care. I think I told myself it was just one night, that it didn't matter. Ethan would never know. But deep down, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I remember the first time Jake kissed me. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like I had been thinking about it for weeks, or imagining what it would feel like. It just happened. One minute we were talking, and the next, his lips were on mine. And for a split second, I felt like I was on fire. It was exciting in a way that felt dangerous, like I was doing something I shouldn't be doing. But at the same time, it was thrilling. It was new, and for the first time in months, I felt wanted. Really wanted. That night at Jake's apartment wasn't a one-off. It didn't stop there. The more we hung out, the more I started craving that feeling. The feeling of being alive, of being desired. With Ethan, things had started to feel stale, predictable. I didn't mean for it to be that way, but life had a way of wearing us down. Ethan worked long hours, and when he was home, he was exhausted. We'd have dinner, talk about his day, then collapse in bed, barely touching. It wasn't that I didn't love him anymore. I did. But the spark was gone, and I guess I didn't know how to get it back. With Jake, everything was different. He was spontaneous, fun, and always made me feel like I was the center of his universe. He wasn't the type to sit around in silence, scrolling through his phone. He made me laugh, he made me feel seen, and he made me feel wanted. It was so easy to slip into this new rhythm with him. So easy, in fact, that I didn't even notice how quickly things were spiraling out of control. I didn't plan on lying to Ethan. I didn't want to be the type of person who cheated. But the more I saw Jake, the more I realized I was lying to myself about how I felt. It wasn't just a physical attraction. I had developed feelings for him, real feelings. And it terrified me. I told myself it was just a fling, something I could hide from Ethan. He was busy, I could sneak around. No harm, no foul, right? But the guilt started to pile up. Every time I saw Ethan, I felt this nagging weight in my chest. He was still the same sweet, kind guy he'd always been. He never suspected anything, not really, but I could tell he was starting to pick up on something. He didn't know the details, but something was off. One evening, Ethan came home earlier than usual. I had just finished texting Jake about meeting up after dinner, and as soon as Ethan walked through the door, I could see it in his face. He wasn't angry, not yet, but there was this look in his eyes, a sort of quiet suspicion. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys into the bowl by the door. "What's up? You look distracted." I had been lying to him for weeks, keeping this secret hidden under layers of small talk and half-truths. But now, with him standing there, I could feel my heart racing, like it was trying to escape my chest. I smiled, trying to make everything seem normal. "Nothing, just tired, I guess," I said, brushing it off. "How was work?" He didn't answer right away. He just stood there, watching me with a furrowed brow. "Ethan?" I asked, a little too quickly. "What's wrong?" He shook his head, his expression softening slightly, but I could tell something was bothering him. "I don't know," he said, sighing. "You've been a little distant lately. You sure everything's okay?" My stomach dropped. He wasn't stupid. He could feel the shift, even if he couldn't pinpoint what had changed. I wanted to tell him that it was nothing, that I was just stressed with work or life in general. I wanted to lie to him, to tell him everything was fine, that I hadn't been sneaking around behind his back. But I didn't. Instead, I just nodded, offering a weak smile. "I'm fine. Just been a lot on my plate, you know." I watched him, trying to gauge his reaction. He seemed to buy it for a moment, but the suspicion was still there, lingering between us. He stepped forward, pulling me into a hug like he always did, and for a second, I felt guilty. I wasn't just hiding it from him. I was hiding it from myself too. I didn't want to admit that I was falling for someone else, that I was slipping away from Ethan bit by bit. But Jake had this pull on me, this magnetic energy that I couldn't resist. Over the next few weeks, the tension between Ethan and me grew. Every time I saw him, I felt like I was betraying him, even though I hadn't said anything. But I didn't have to. I could tell that Ethan was starting to notice. He would ask me strange questions, ones that weren't like him at all. "Who were you texting earlier?" he'd ask. Or, "You're spending a lot of time on your phone, huh?" Simple things that made me freeze for a split second, as though he could see straight through me. There was one night I'll never forget. Jake and I had spent the entire afternoon together, and I knew Ethan would be home late from work. I'd promised myself I would take a step back, maybe focus on my relationship with Ethan. But that night, Jake called me, asking if I wanted to meet up. My heart raced as I walked around the apartment, pretending to get ready for bed while I made excuses to Ethan. He had come home, looking tired, but still asking about my day. I was so caught up in thinking about Jake that I barely heard him, my mind racing as I tried to figure out how I could sneak away without him realizing. Ethan seemed to sense my unease. His eyes lingered on me longer than usual, like he could tell something wasn't right. But he didn't push. I made up some excuse about needing a little alone time. I wasn't ready to tell him the truth, not yet. That night, as I walked out the door to meet Jake, a strange feeling washed over me. I knew I was about to do something I couldn't undo, and deep down, I felt the weight of it all. But I couldn't stop myself. The excitement, the thrill, the escape from the quiet routine that had begun to suffocate me. I couldn't let go of it. Jake was waiting for me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt alive again. But I knew, too, that the cracks were starting to show. Ethan was starting to see through the facade I had built, and I couldn't keep up the lie for much longer. I just didn't know how to stop. I can still hear the sound of the door opening. It was just supposed to be another lazy afternoon at home. Ethan was at work. I had the day off, and I was supposed to be cleaning up, maybe getting some things ready for the weekend. But instead, I was sitting on the couch in the middle of a mess of blankets and wine glasses, with Jake, the last person Ethan would ever expect to find in our apartment. Jake was sitting too close, a little too comfortably, and I think we both knew it was a dangerous place to be. We'd been sneaking around for weeks now, but we'd never gotten caught. Until now. I was supposed to be getting ready for a quiet evening. Ethan had planned something special for us that night, a surprise dinner he'd been talking about for days. He was so excited, and part of me wanted to be excited too. I had even agreed to go out and try to make things work again, trying to put aside the guilt gnawing at me, but here I was, tangled up in Jake's arms, my heart pounding not from excitement, but from fear. Jake leaned in, his lips brushing my ear as he whispered something stupid, something that only added to the tension in the room. I laughed, but the sound was tight, forced. I knew it was wrong, but in that moment, I couldn't help myself. I wanted to feel something, anything, that wasn't just the suffocating weight of my lies. He's gonna be home soon?" I whispered, pulling away from him as my eyes flicked nervously to the clock on the wall. "You need to go, Jake." "Now?" He looked at me, confusion flashing in his eyes. "Why? He's not gonna be here for another hour, right? We've got time." I swallowed hard. The truth was, I wasn't sure. Ethan had been working late all week, but lately, he'd been a little unpredictable. I told myself it was fine. I had time to wrap up the mess I'd made and cover up the signs of what had been happening. But then, the door opened. I didn't hear the key turn in the lock, not at first. But the moment I did, my heart stopped. I froze, a horrible pit forming in my stomach. I glanced over at Jake, and his eyes widened. He didn't even get up. He just sat there, motionless, as if waiting to see how bad it was going to get. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to run, to hide, but the other part of me, the one that had gotten used to living a double life, told me to stay calm. Maybe he wouldn't notice. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed, but it was. Ethan walked in, his eyes lighting up when he saw me sitting on the couch. He smiled at first, probably thinking I was home alone, just relaxing. But then, the smile slowly faded when he saw Jake sitting beside me, way too close for comfort. And for the first time in weeks, the mask I'd been wearing slipped. I could see it in Ethan's eyes. He knew. He knew something wasn't right. The tension in the room thickened and I could feel my palms sweating. "Ethan." I started, my voice shaking. I tried to smile, but it felt so fake, so wrong. "Why is he here?" Ethan interrupted, his voice low, but there was something in it. Something sharp that cut through the air. Jake stood up awkwardly, looking between the two of us. He wasn't even trying to hide the discomfort. I came by to talk," he stammered, his usual cool demeanor slipping for a moment. He looked at me, and I could tell he was nervous too. Ethan took a step forward, his eyes narrowing as he processed the scene. It was like he was piecing it all together in real time, his face slowly shifting from confusion to something darker, more hurt. Talk. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper now, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. About what? The silence between us stretched out. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I knew I should say something, anything. But the words wouldn't come. There was no way out of this. No way to pretend everything was okay. I had been caught. I don't think I need to explain, Jake said, his voice firm now, but still laced with an edge of uncertainty. He was trying to take control of the situation, but he wasn't the one who had everything to lose. I looked at Ethan, and for a brief moment, I saw the man I used to love. His face was pale, his lips pressed into a tight line, like he was trying to hold it together. But his eyes were filled with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. I had never seen him look at me like that before. Ethan. I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but my words felt heavy, like they were too much for me to carry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. It's complicated. Ethan didn't respond at first. He just stood there, staring at me. Then, slowly, he shook his head, like he couldn't believe what I was saying. He didn't say anything for a long time, just watching me with eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. Finally, his voice cracked. Complicated. You've been lying to me, haven't you? All this time, you've been seeing him behind my back. And now you're telling me it's complicated. I could feel the guilt eating me alive. I wanted to explain everything. How it started with Jake, how I hadn't meant for it to go this far, how much I loved him, how I had tried to get back to Ethan, how I had been torn between the two of them. But I couldn't. It all felt pointless now. The damage had been done. Ethan reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. My heart skipped, but it wasn't in a good way. I recognized the box. I knew what it meant. Ethan, please. I started, my voice trembling, but it was too late. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed the ring, our ring, onto the floor. The sound of it hitting the ground was deafening in the silence that followed. I could see the pain in his eyes, but I couldn't find a way to fix it. I was going to propose to you tonight, he said, his voice barely a whisper now, cracking under the weight of the words. But I guess I don't know you at all, do I? Jake took a step back, watching us both, but he didn't say anything. This wasn't his fight. He had his own stake in it, but this moment wasn't about him anymore. It was about the destruction I had caused. About the trust I had shattered. Ethan turned and walked out the door without another word, leaving me standing there, paralyzed by the realization that I had just destroyed everything. The door slammed behind Ethan, and the sound echoed through the empty apartment. A cold, suffocating silence followed, and I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me all at once. The room seemed smaller now, the air thicker, as if every breath I took was a reminder of the mess I had made. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my eyes fixed on the spot where Ethan had stood just seconds before. The ring, now discarded on the floor, gleamed up at me from the carpet. It felt like a symbol of everything I had destroyed. Everything that had been good between us, everything I had taken for granted. I hadn't just ruined a moment. I had shattered a future. Jake, who had been standing quietly by the window, watching everything unfold, was the first to break the silence. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by something else. Something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pity. It was disappointment. You really fucked up, didn't you? He said, his voice flat, but with a certain bitterness that hit me harder than I expected. I didn't know how to respond. The guilt was consuming me, like a storm inside, but at the same time, there was this strange, almost numb feeling that had settled in. I was numb to everything except the consequences of what had just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far, I said quietly, though I knew it was a lie. I had wanted it to go this far, even if I hadn't meant for it to be exposed like this. Jake stepped closer, his eyes softening for just a moment, but I could tell he was holding back something. You didn't mean for him to find out. He corrected me, his tone sharp. But you sure as hell didn't try to stop it. You could have stopped it, anytime, but you didn't. You let it happen. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. He was right. I had let it happen. I had let myself fall into something I knew was wrong, and I hadn't done a damn thing to fix it until it was too late. I looked down at the ring again. I don't know what to do, I whispered. My voice sounded small even to me. I had never felt so lost in my life. Jake took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, like he was trying to clear his own thoughts. What happens now? He asked. He wasn't asking me. It was like he was asking himself. I didn't know how to answer. What did happen now? Ethan was gone. He had left, and I couldn't even blame him. I had pushed him away, lied to him, betrayed him. Everything I had promised him was a lie. I had broken something that was never going to be put back together. I have to fix this, I said, almost to myself. I have to talk to him, make him understand. Jake shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. Do you really think you can fix this? After everything? After what you just did? Do you think he's gonna just forgive you? I didn't know. I wanted to believe I could fix it. I wanted to believe that there was some magic word, some way to rewind the clock, to undo the damage I had caused. But deep down, I knew there was no fixing it. Ethan wouldn't just forget this. He couldn't. He would never see me the same way again. Not after this. Jake reached down, picking up the ring from the floor and holding it in his hand. The diamond caught the light for a second, and for a brief moment, I saw the same reflection in Jake's eyes, the same emptiness I was feeling. He wasn't angry at me. He was just tired. Tired of the lies. Tired of the secrecy. Tired of being a part of something that was so broken. He handed the ring back to me, and I took it from him without a word, my fingers trembling. I don't think I can be a part of this anymore, he said, his voice quiet but final. Not like this. I'm not the one you need to fix things with. It stung more than I expected. In that moment, I realized something I had been avoiding for so long. I wasn't just betraying Ethan. I was betraying myself. I had gotten so caught up in the excitement of something new, of feeling desired and alive, that I had forgotten what truly mattered. I had let myself fall into something that wasn't real, something that could never last. I nodded slowly, the weight of his words sinking in. I know, I whispered. Jake stood there for a moment longer, like he was debating whether to say something else, but in the end, he didn't. He just turned and walked out the door, leaving me standing alone in the silence of my own mistakes. I didn't try to stop him. I couldn't. He had already made his choice, and so had I. We were both part of a story that had already been written, and it wasn't one I was proud of. I stood there for a long time, holding the ring in my hand, staring at the spot where Ethan had been just minutes ago. I thought about everything I had done, about the lies I had told, about how much I had hurt the person who loved me the most. I thought about how easy it had been to ignore the consequences of my actions until they were staring me right in the face. And now, there was no escaping them. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know how to fix this, if fixing it was even possible. All I knew was that I had to face Ethan. I had to at least try to make things right, even if it was already too late. But when I reached for my phone to text him, I hesitated. My fingers hovered over the screen, unsure of what to say. What could I say to him? How could I explain any of this? In the end, I just put my phone down and let the silence take over, because the truth was, I didn't have the words to fix what I had broken. And maybe I never would.